Aunt Jemima was canceled. And if you didn't know, Nancy Green, the original first Aunt Jemima, she was a picture of the American dream. She was a freed slave who went on to be the face of the pancake syrup that we love and have in our pantries today.
So that was a young woman at a Trump Phoenix rally who is lamenting about the change in Aunt Jemima pancakes and syrup by putting out, of course, false information. So now the woman's name is, and you're going to be shocked, Reagan Escude, or Escude. I'm not sure how to say her name, but her first name, of course, Reagan. You know, Ronald Reagan, and she happens to be a conservative and one of the members of Turning Point USA. So now she is very, very upset that Quaker Oats changed the name of this pancake mix and syrup mix, and so this is more outrage from the right wing, right? Look, a lot of people were rightly pointing out that, hey, man, look, that's kind of a racist mascot that you got there. Maybe you should probably change that at some point, just rebrand. And so the company said, because we have right now an issue with Black Lives Matter protests and racial representation around this country, and we're having a serious discussion about taking down Confederate monuments and basically trying to reduce the ways in this country is systemically racist, right? So now pancake syrup, not necessarily racist, but when you have someone that is a caricature and a character that comes from a minstrel show, then yeah, that is, I mean, that's obviously something that probably should change with the times, right? So now, again, very, very upset though, Miss Reagan is, because, I mean, how dare you? How dare you remove Aunt Jemima? And she's going to use this saying, this basically meme, and I've seen this around Facebook, right? That you're erasing black voices like Nancy Green, right? How dare you? How dare you erase these people? The first African American millionaire. Well, you're going to be shocked to find out that the history that she's peddling is incorrect. And actually, Nancy Green suffered not only as a slave, but also after her emancipation, where she still suffered systemic racism. So now Snopes recently put out an article, and this is based on a book called The Mammy, A Century of Race, Gender, and Southern Memory, written by author Kimberly Wallace Sanders. So now in it, the author writes this: at one point, the most reliable means of consolidating the country involved inducing a kind of national amnesia about the history of slavery. And this is, of course, after Reconstruction, or during Reconstruction. Aunt Jemima was created to celebrate the state-of-the-art technology through a pancake mix. She did not celebrate the promise of post-emancipation progress for African Americans. Aunt Jemima's freedom was negated or revoked in this role because of the character's persona as a plantation slave, not a free black woman employed as a domestic. An African-American woman pretending to be a slave was pivotal to the trademark's commercial achievement in 1893. So basically, hearkening back to the time where you had these African-American women that are not free, that are slaves, that are mammies. And of course, the mammy is the caricature of an older, sometimes sassy black woman that, is enslaved to the family and takes care of all the domestic duties, including raising white children and putting those white children basically ahead of, if she has her own children, ahead of her own family, and puts the well-being of the slave owner and the family over her own well-being. So there's that. So now the success, she continues, revolved around the fantasy of returning a black woman to a sanitized version of slavery. So one that, of course, doesn't involve the actual horrific reality of what slavery actually was, which was, again, filled with beatings, whippings, lynchings, rape, abuse, and the fact that you do not believe that these people are actual human beings and not treating them as if they're human beings, as if they're subhuman or just property. And that's the reality of slavery. And so this character was created to kind of whitewash that, right? And say, oh, no, happy slave. Aunt Jemima, very happy, very well treated. And look, look at how everyone appreciates the pancakes that she makes. No, it's horrifying. And so, yeah, it needed to go. So now the Aunt Jemima character not only did that, but involved a regression of race relations, and her character helped usher in a prominent resurgence of the happy slave mythology in the antebellum South. So that's the character, right? So now Reagan mentions Nancy Green and how she benefited from this by becoming America's first black millionaire. Well, the truth about that is that she was not a millionaire. In fact, according to historians, she wasn't even able to live off the earnings that she made from her portrayal as Aunt Jemima, and continued to work as a housekeeper until a few years before her death in 1923. So they stole her wages. Again, this rebranding was a popular thing. That's how the Aunt Jemima brand literally took off. And yet, she was not compensated fairly for her betrayal, or I'm sorry, for her portrayal. And it was a betrayal, right? Because she wasn't compensated for the work that she had done. Now, the Aunt Jemima character itself, by the way, was inspired by a minstrel show. Now, you guys know what that is, right? It's a minstrel show is basically where white people will go in blackface and do outrageous impressions of African Americans, right? So now this particular minstrel show involved men, again, dressed in blackface, performing a song entitled Old Aunt Jemima. So everything that you're hearing about, Aunt Jemima from conservatives, about how, oh, no, this is a great thing. How dare you impugn the memory of Nancy Green by taking, and basically taking her image off the box and replacing it with something else. How dare you do that, right? That's a bad thing. I can't believe that you're erasing her history. When in reality, nobody really knows the history, at least on the conservative side, because they're not talking about what actually happened, the reality of not only slavery, but also with, the memories of slavery and the institutional, racism and portrayals of African Americans, even during a time when they were supposedly free. And again, you have different forms of slavery, including, different forms of institutional racism, like wage theft, which clearly happened to Nancy Green and her family. And so they made every single way to try to disenfranchise her and to try to take what she rightfully earned through her portrayal. And again, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. So what you're hearing from conservatives is basically concern trolling. That's what that is. There's a clear political angle to this. And what it is, of course, the conservative war against so-called cancel culture. Now, why are conservatives going to war against cancel culture? Because they're often the ones being canceled because of horribly racist opinions, misogynistic opinions, and other things that are related. And so, yeah, they are getting canceled for that, and they don't like it. And so they come up with ridiculous memes, and they lie about the history because a lot of people, they can get away with it because a lot of people don't know. And this is just another example of that. So Reagan, now that you know the history, can you really be sad about the removal of Aunt Jemima? Again, it's the same stuff. It's the same, syrup. It's the same pancake mix. It's just going to be a different, less racist and offensive name. And if that triggers you, well, then I guess you could just go get a different brand. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.